Welcome everyone to our 50/50 by 2030 March series, an invitation to our partners to take the pledge for equity in the trades. We are honored to have had just an amazing series thus far. And today, in some people's eyes, is the hallmark of what this means for equity in the trades. Today we have Nora Spencer, founder and executive director of Hope Renovations, with us today to talk about what it means to have trades training made by and for women. Um, I could say 10,000 things just from that statement alone. And so, Nora, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be part of this very important and timely effort. So thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. So, as a little bit of background, She Built This City has launched a pledge 50/50 equity by 2030. What does that mean? We're asking our partners, industry leaders, legislators to join with us in this important work of equity in the trades by the year 2030. If we are a trades training program, we're getting young girls excited and interested in the trades. We want to hold the industry accountable for some changes that we need to see for that place to be welcoming to them when they reach that space. Even the now, as we are training adults to go in the space as well. So our pledge consists of three platforms. We have diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is living wages, recruiting from diverse streams, having diversity at all levels of your organization. The second pillar is hospitable working environment. That is place, space, and policy that is pro women. We also talk about what it means to have investment in the future. That is both investing in youth, investing in workforce development platforms, and investing in technology. Today's conversation really hits all three areas of what it means to have diversity in your recruitment sources, place based policy that's pro women, as well as investing in a workforce pathway that prepares people for the trades. And so, as you can see, we're excited that Nora has joined us today to have this conversation to push forward. Here's an example of what can be done in this space. So I'm going to read her bio, and then we're going to transition over to Nora's presentation for today. Just give me 1 second. All right. Nora Elcori Spencer is founder and CEO of Hope Renovations in Carrboro, North Carolina. Nora spent the first 15 years of her career in human resources and recruiting at Fortune 50 companies. In 2017, with a desire to work directly in the community, building social change for marginalized people, Nora changed directions to pursue a master's in social work. While in grad school, a self-taught tradeswoman and avid handy gal, Nora developed the idea for a training program that would empower underemployed women to make inroads in the construction and trades where they could earn living wages on a sustainable career path. After learning about the concept of aging in place, Nora realized there was an opportunity for these women to practice their newfound skills while giving their time to older adults in the community. And the model for Hope Renovations was born. Nora, tell us more about this journey that you've been on of creating this pathway.
Well, thank you for that very kind introduction, Latoya. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to be part of this speaker series, and thank you to all of you who've joined to learn more today. I have found that the best way for me to talk about what we're doing and our journey is to kind of do the whole origin story and talk a little bit about our program and go from that perspective. So that's what I'm going to do. I do have some slides that I'm going to share. So let me see if I can go ahead and pull those up. Let's see. Here we go. So hopefully folks can see that. Great. You'll find in this presentation lots of fun pictures peppered throughout. One thing that I think is really important for me to start off by talking about is the fact that we're new. So we actually did not launch our programs until summer of last year. So we've only been in existence since July. Well, we've been in existence longer than that, but we've only been actually doing the work since last July. Um, and I can tell you that when I got to the point where I started having all these great photos of our Hope gals doing the work and with tools in their hands, that I could pop into things like this presentation instead of using the stock photos that I had to use for the first couple of years. That was just the best feeling for me, because it really kind of brought home that it was real all of a sudden. So I like to use a lot of pictures of our Hope gals. You'll see those throughout the presentation. Hope Renovations, like Latoya said, was kind of the brainchild of a few different things. I really, when I decided to go back to graduate school for a master's in social work, I really wanted to figure out a way to use my business knowledge and my business experience to help bring about social change. I had a real strong interest in social entrepreneurship and social innovation. And I really felt like there's not enough opportunity to bring the business world and the nonprofit world, or the business world and the social change world together. But it makes a lot of sense. We can, both worlds can learn from each other. So while I was in grad school, I started coming up with the idea for this training program. And I'll talk a little bit more about my own background as a tradeswoman. But the concept was born, in grad school. I started working on it right after I graduated in 2017, and we incorporated that fall. And then over the next really 3 years, worked towards getting it launched. And that's a whole other webinar about starting a nonprofit and launching one during a pandemic. But it was a labor of love, and we've had a lot of great success since last summer, and a lot of growth, and we're going to continue to have a lot of growth. So um, yeah, I picked up my first power tools when I was actually working for Lowe's corporate headquarters back in the day. I'd never been a handy person at all. My dad was like the least handy person that I've ever known. My mom was probably more handy than he was, but not really tool handy, more like gardening and interior design type of thing. So I never had really any exposure to the trades at all. When I started working for Lowe's, all of a sudden I started, having access to some of the tools that Lowe's sells, and the products and the materials. And I really love Lowe's as a company in general. And Lowe's as a company does a lot to educate their employees about the industry that they're working in. So I learned a lot about it. And at the time, we had a fantastic employee discount as well. So I started buying some stuff and trying it out. And I realized pretty quickly that I was good at it. And it surprised me. And honestly, it kind of ticked me off that I'd never known that I was good at it. It took me until that point in my life to realize that this was an aptitude that I had. But it was. And I started by doing just some small remodeling stuff in my own house. I had this epiphany moment when I'd hired a guy to renovate my bathroom, and he did an awful job. And after the fact, I thought, you know what, I could have done better at this if I had just spent a little bit of time Googling how to do some of this stuff. So that's what I started doing. Over time, my husband and I renovated a couple more houses. I started working with a lot of contractors on jobs. I'd follow them around. I'd ask them to show me how to do things. And they loved doing that. They loved teaching me, and they loved that I had an interest in this. And it kind of struck me, that they really wanted me there, and they wanted me to learn this stuff alongside of them, but I never saw any other women doing it. And when I would have conversations with a lot of these contractors, I'd hear a lot of, women are great. The best employees I ever had are women. I'd love to have more women. And it really, there seemed like a disconnect to me, and I didn't really understand it. So the idea for a training program was sort of in the back of my mind for a long time because of that experience. And then once I was in the school of social work, I did an internship at a homeless shelter where I was really up close and personal with women who needed living wage jobs. And coming from an HR background, I really had a strong understanding of how work can really lift you out of poverty. How work is so important in so many measures of our lives. It's a social determinant of health, right? To be able to have, sustained employment that pays you a living wage, that allows you to support your family and support yourself. So I saw an opportunity to kind of um, make that happen in our community for women, and kind of share some of my knowledge. So when I was, like Latoya mentioned, when I was in graduate school, I did take a class in the business school about, it was actually a social entrepreneurship class, and there was a focus on aging in this class. And I learned about the concept of aging in place, and the fact that it's the fastest growing segment of the industry right now. But there are not nearly enough contractors doing this work because primarily it's kind of small to mid-sized jobs and they just don't have time for it. And so I thought to myself, well, gosh, if there's a training program for women, they're going to need an opportunity to practice some of this stuff hands-on. Why don't we bring the two together? That seems like it makes a lot of sense. So that's what I did. What I wanted to do did not exist, so I created it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our program. So our mission is to inspire hope in women and older adults for a joyful and fulfilling future. I think I get a lot of questions about what's the breakdown, and our primary goal is women's empowerment, and then our secondary goal is helping the aging in place community through our women's empowerment work. But they work really well together. Our older adult customers obviously love having, all female crews in their homes doing this stuff. There's definitely an element of trust and an element of safety that I think they feel when they see an all women crew come in. I'm not going to say we don't have a lot of interesting comments. We were on a job a couple of weeks ago, and we walked in and the guy said, they sent women to do a man's job. And he was serious. He really actually said that. But, like everything else in this industry, it's about changing minds. So the way that our programs work, like I mentioned, we bring underemployed women into our program so that we can prepare them for jobs in the trades. That woman over there on the left-hand side of the screen is Jasmine. She was part of our first cohort, and she became the first female employee that this particular plumbing company ever had. So we're very proud of her. Older adults, obviously, we also help adults with disabilities with our program simply because a lot of the modifications and that type of thing, a lot of the work are very similar to what we would do for older adults who are aging in place. And then, of course, trades employers. Our program wouldn't be what it is without employers and folks helping these women get into the workforce. So, we all hear all the time about the critical skills gap that exists in the trades. This is a great time for women and just people in general to go into the trades because there is so much opportunity as the baby boomers age out and there's not enough people to take their place. What I'll talk about a little bit though is the fact that it's not, we hear a lot about the skills gap, but for women, it's really more of an opportunity gap. Just like the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, we're not told about the trades when we're young. It's not something that girls are encouraged to do. It's not something that is really part of our culture when we're young, the way that it is with boys. I remember being in middle school and you were either put in shop class or you were put in home ec. And you didn't have any choice. You just got randomly put in one. And I was so excited about being in shop class because my brother had been in shop class and he'd made all these cool things. And I got put in home ec. And I was really upset about it. And I talked to my homeroom teacher and she said, you're a girl, so home ec is going to be a lot better for you in the long run. And I mean, that's really, I accepted that, that was how it should be. Now, I'm not saying I didn't get a lot of great skills from home ec. I can set a table like nobody's business, and wrap a present like you wouldn't believe. But a shop class, I think, really would have served me better. But it just, that's not part of our culture as girls. So it really is an opportunity gap when it's something that we've never had a seat at the table ever since we're young. So we have to make our own seat at the table. And that's what this program is about. I want to talk a little bit about the actual program. So the way our program works is it's 10 weeks. And over that 10 weeks, the trainees that come into our program learn a little bit of all the different trades. So we have actually licensed a curriculum that was created by the Home Builders Institute, which is the educational arm of the National Association of Home Builders. They have a great curriculum called the Pre-Apprenticeship Certificate Training Curriculum, PACT. And there are a lot of different modules that you can teach with PACT. You can teach carpentry, electrical, plumbing, there's landscaping, but then there's also building construction technology, which, if you're familiar, is another phrase that basically means maintenance type work, handy person type work. So we teach that curriculum because it touches on a little bit of everything. Our goal with this is we want women who maybe have never picked up a hammer in their lives, and we've had some women come into our program who literally have never picked up a tool in their lives. We want them to be able to touch a little bit of everything, gain a little bit of knowledge in all of the different trades, kind of core skills. There's a lot of safety. The whole first week is safety. There's a lot of math, because if any of you are familiar with construction math, it's very different than regular math. And, there's a lot of identification of tools and materials, and just kind of understanding what it is you're going to be working with when you're working in the trades. Graduates of our program, when they come out, it says 3 separate credentials, but there's actually 4. So they do get an HBI PACT certificate, and they get both the core certificate and they get the BCT, Building Construction Technology certificate from HBI. We also do OSHA 10 safety training while they're in our program. We have found that this is really something that trades employers are very excited about. If you have someone coming into a job that has an understanding of safety, they're not only going to keep themselves safe, they're going to keep other employees on your crew safe. They also get first aid CPR training from our local rescue squad. And actually, they also get fire safety training. They get a fire safety training certificate. So as many credentials as we can possibly pack into 10 weeks is what we try to do for the women in our program. It's not just about the hard skills, though. When I first started researching trades training programs, first of all, I think I had this idea that there was probably a ton of them out there, and there was going to be all this evidence-based research that I could pull from, and I'd just be able to put this together and make all these compelling arguments, and just the funding was going to roll in. Well, that did not happen because there's not that many. There's, I don't know the exact number. I would guess fewer than 15 in the whole country that are specifically trades training programs for women. Our program is the only program specifically for adult women to teach them the trades from a point of no knowledge at all to a certification. Ours is the first one like this that exists in North Carolina. There's a lot of opportunities through community colleges for women. There's women specific classes with community colleges and with some vocational schools, but there's not a school just for women. Obviously, She Built This City is a great example of a program that is for women, for girls. And we're very excited to be friends with such an awesome program, like-mindedness. But I was really shocked at how little of this existed just out in the world. There's, speaking of the world, there's actually more of it in Europe. There's more of a culture around it in Europe than there is in the US, which is interesting and has a lot to do with unions. Um, but as I was doing this research and as I was looking into what makes a training program work for women, and what makes what helps them with retention once they get into the industry. A lot of it was about soft skills and professional skills. And if you talk to construction employers, which I did a lot of as I was developing Hope Renovations, that's the thing that's missing in this industry. I had one guy tell me, what, if you can just get me somebody who's going to show up, and if they can't show up, they're going to call me and tell me that they're not going to be there, that would be great. There's a friend of mine who's a female, and she's an electrician, and she said, if you could find me someone that I have relative confidence that they're not going to electrocute themselves and die, then that's really all I'm looking for. Our bar is a little higher than that. But a lot of it is just, professionalism. It's being able to talk to customers. We focus a lot of our work on career development. So resume writing, we do mock interviews. We talk about networking. We talked about LinkedIn. And then we do a lot of, we've got a lot of partners who come in and talk. We've got a couple partners that come in and talk about personal finance. We actually have UNC is in our backyard, University of North Carolina. They come and do a self-defense workshop for us. So basic self-defense. We get a lot of kind of, I guess you would call them, wraparound knowledge in addition to the hard skills. And we spend a good bit of time on that because we want women to be, the best that they can be and the most successful they can be when they go into the trade. So we want to arm them with all that we can while they're with us. Another big piece of what makes our program unique is we have a lot of guest speakers come in. We try our best to get as many women as possible to come in to actually give a real world perspective of what it's like to be in the trades. We don't want to scare anybody off, but we want our trainees to hear stories from women who have experienced stuff that would be very uncomfortable because they need to know that they could very well experience that stuff. We have a lot of tradeswomen. We have women who are business owners come in and talk. We have an HR expert come in and talk about harassment. What counts as harassment and what you're supposed to do about it. Because, if you're the only woman on a male job site and something happens and you're a brand new employee, that can be really intimidating. And having that power and having that knowledge and that confidence is really going to serve you well in that situation. So we talk about all that stuff. And I think this is one of the things that at the end of the program, we get some of the best evaluations on is the fact that we, host these guests and that we have these conversations. Another really important piece, and I would even say this is one of the things, if not the thing that makes us the most unique. So we are social work construction workers, we like to call ourselves, which, maybe that's not a thing, but it should be a thing. I'm a social worker. I actually have 4 staff members who also are social workers. We all have our masters in social work. We've got a lot of social work going on. And I think that probably most people don't see a whole lot of connection between social work and construction, but there really is. We in social work are fighting for a lot of the things that you can get in this industry. So, one of the big concepts in social work is this idea of self-determination, that if you give somebody the tools, literally and figuratively, that they're going to be able to create the best life for themselves. And where do you see that any more than in the construction industry? This idea of making something for yourself and building a career for yourself. We talk about, dignity in housing for our older adult customers. That's a big piece of what social work advocacy is about. It's also a big piece of what the construction industry is about. So there's a lot of connections between the two of them. Because of our social work roots, we do have an understanding of the barriers that a lot of women face as they go into not just this industry, but any job. So, we have women in our program who are very underserved, who come from very marginalized backgrounds, who are reentering out of, former incarceration. We have women who, recently divorced, single moms, housing insecure. And these are all things that, while we are not going to be able to solve them or resolve them in 10 weeks, we can certainly give the women in our program the tools to address them and deal with them in the best way that they can, so that when they get out of our program, they can go into a job, be successful at it, and sustain it. And that's a lot of what we do. We hook women up with resources. We give them that support. We provide them with case management. We do coaching with them. And we just connect them to whatever resources they need to be successful. And the thing about it, too, is we don't stop doing it right at the end of the program. We are still very much in touch, like on text chains, with the women who have graduated from our program already. And we continue to help them and continue to support them however we can. And I hope that we'll always be able to do that. That's really important to me. So I did mention briefly about our construction program, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. We have an all-female crew that just works on this side of the business. So our programs are separate. We have our training program, we have our construction program, and they are completely separate programs, but they work hand in hand in that our trainees have the opportunity while they're in our program to go out on job sites with our construction crew, get their hands dirty, see what it's like to be on a job site, use the tools they've been learning about, and have that real world experience under their belts. We haven't been able to do as much of that as I would like because of COVID, and because we're working with a very vulnerable population. Obviously, we can't have a group of trainees inside a senior's house while we're working on a bathroom renovation. But exterior projects, decks, if it happens to be a vacant home, we've been able to do that. We've also been able to bring women kind of, here and there, ones, twos to certain projects to help us work on tile jobs if they have an interest in tile, or if they have an interest in framing, come help us, frame up a wall. So we've been able to manage the best we can during COVID. It's been a little tough, but I'm really looking forward to what it's going to be like after COVID. We launched in the middle of COVID, right? We launched in July. So I don't actually know what it's like to exist pre-COVID. So that'll be a completely new thing for me. And I'm very excited about learning what non-COVID life is going to look like. I feel like it's just freedom is going to be unbelievable. So our construction program, one other interesting feature of it, I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that I had a real strong interest in social entrepreneurship. And one of the reasons for that is social entrepreneurism is typically a model of sustainability, right? You are creating revenue that you are then putting back into society. And an issue with a lot of nonprofits is sustainability. If we are constantly relying on funding from government sources, from grants, from donors, what happens when some of that dries up? What happens when a donor doesn't want to donate anymore? It can really jeopardize your programs. So when I created Hope Renovations, I specifically created this model that we do the work in our program, in our construction program, on a sliding scale. And what that means is, if you're a low income senior, depending on your income, you may pay nothing for the work that we do for you. You may pay very little. We can access a lot of governmental and other funding sources usually to try to help with some of that work. If you are an older adult that's further up on the scale, you're going to pay higher prices in line with market value. And the revenue that we generate from those jobs is put directly back into the program to fund the work that we're doing for the low income seniors who can't afford it. So the beauty of that is that as we grow and as our opportunities grow and as our name kind of gets out there, we're able to take on more and more full pay jobs, which means we can then take on more and more of the low income jobs for those folks. So it's a good model. I don't anticipate that our construction program will ever be going so strong that it would be able to fund all of it, including the training program. But if it's at least funding itself and funding that work that we're doing out in the community, I'm going to be really happy, and that's the goal. So, and a lot of nonprofits these days are kind of going for a revenue generating model, or determining what kind of revenue generating model they can create for their organizations. Our program, I think I mentioned before, the goal obviously is to cut down this pesky gender gap and get more women into the trades. Like, that's what we want to do. And there's several different ways that we do that. One of them is entry-level trades employment. So it's interesting. I will say that when I was doing the research for Hope Renovations, when I was talking to potential partners and potential employers early on, the feedback that I got a lot was, bringing women into a helper position, that would be perfect if they come out of your program and we can hire them as a helper. The funny thing that's happened is that the women in our program get so many skills that they're sort of overskilled for that helper level. So even though entry-level trades employment is the goal, we're not just talking about that entry-level helper role. Women coming out of our program have gone into, full-on carpenter roles, entry-level still, but doing the carpentry, plumber. We have a woman in our current cohort who already has a job offer to be an electrician's apprentice. So the amount of skills they get in our program kind of qualifies them for maybe one step up from helper. If they want to go in the helper role, that's totally fine, because even those typically pay living wages. But it is kind of cool to see that they're learning more and getting more skills than I think we originally anticipated, and going out into the job market at a little bit higher level than we originally thought. Apprenticeships obviously is another focus of our program, and we are working to create more of those pathways with our program. And then the other goal is, for some women, it's not necessarily a goal to go right into a trades job. They may want some more education. They may love the idea of electrical, for instance, and want to go get some education that's going to put them on the path to licensure. A lot of women in our program, and this is another thing we've really been surprised by, really, they have a little bit of an interest in entrepreneurship, and that really comes out during the program. During this program, the fact that we're all women, I think, is probably what's behind this. But the confidence building that happens, and just it's so powerful to watch these women who at the beginning of the program, they are not sure, a lot of them, that this is the right path for them. Midway through that program, when they are running chop saws and they are working together to build stuff, you wouldn't even know that they're the same women from that first day in the program. And by the end, the confidence level, and in our evaluations, that is the one measure that is always the highest, is, do you have more confidence? Do you feel that you have more confidence in yourself now than when you began the program? It's always high marks on that. And I really do believe that it's not just a product of what they're learning. It's a product of the fact that they're learning it together as women in an environment that's all women, and in an environment where, no one's afraid to ask a question. No one's afraid to fail or screw up. No one is afraid they're going to seem like they don't know as much, or, imposter syndrome doesn't exist when you're all in the same place together. So we've had a lot of women, as a result of that, decide, you know what, I just want to be an entrepreneur. I just want to, build my thing. I thought I wanted to go into a job right into the trades, but now I want to be a GC. We've had a couple of women do that. We've had a couple of women go and get their certified aging in place specialist certification because they decided they wanted to build a business doing that. We have one woman who is starting to build her own handy woman business. And so that's been a little bit surprising to us, but exciting too. And, we want to get women in the trades any way that we can. And that's one way to do it. So I want to pause really quickly and just, take a quick break and see if there's any questions so far that are burning. I know that we'll have questions at the end. Latoya, I see your head nodding, but if there's any burning questions, I wanted to go ahead because I've only got a couple more slides, but they're going to take a little bit of time. No burning questions. Okay. Well, then we'll keep going. I was given some thought to, why this program is so successful. And I think, I just mentioned a big part of it, and that is that it is all women, and that's the feedback that we get from the trainees too. It's not just me saying it. And by the way, we've graduated 13 women from our program so far. We're in cohort number 3 right now, and this cohort is graduating on April 1st. And we are recruiting currently for our 4th cohort, which is going to start April 26th, I believe. So we're not taking any time between. We're just rolling them right out. If we had the space, if COVID wasn't happening, we never have enough spots. We always have more interest than we have spots. That was something that I honestly was not sure was going to happen. With all of my research, with all of my talking to people, both industry and worker level, women who were interested in the program, I still wasn't really sure if this is actually something that women were going to want to do. The area of North Carolina where I live is the Triangle area, and it is an area that is very educated. So you've got 4 universities actually right here in this area, big universities, and then you have a number of small universities. There's a lot of tech here. There's a lot of pharma here. The town where I live, Chapel Hill, it's a college town. So, most of the jobs here are technology, they're retail, they're service. The trades is it's not cool here the way that it maybe is other parts of the country. So I had some hesitation thinking, this may not fly. I was wrong. And a big part of that, I think, is, and I know from women telling me this, when women see other women doing it, they want to do it. We always say, if you don't see it, you can't be it. And our whole lives, we haven't seen it. But think about the first time you were driving by a job site and you saw a woman standing out there in a hard hat, and like the feeling that gave you, like, yeah, that's a woman doing that stuff. When we're putting this stuff on social media, when we're putting these pictures of these women being badasses with tools and building stuff, women are seeing that. They're sharing it with other women in their networks, and it's spreading. And because of that, we have a lot of interest in our program. We have a lot of opportunity for growth if we can figure out how to make that happen. And it's not just in North Carolina. We were featured on CBS this morning on Christmas Eve, which was fantastic to be on a national stage. And I think that the coolest thing that came out of that was the literally hundreds of messages that we got from women and men all over the country saying, when's Hope Renovations coming to Kansas? When's Hope Renovations coming to North Dakota, to Alaska, to Rhode Island? How do we make this happen in New Orleans? So that really kind of drove home. If I had any doubt that this was something that people wanted, that just deleted that doubt altogether. So I gave a little bit of thought to, what I would say anybody really needs if they're creating a program for women by women. to make it successful. And I came up with four. The first one is the right people. So I'm an HR person, long history of HR and recruiting. And I think I always knew that the most important thing was that you have an employee who is really passionate about what you're doing. In fact, if I think about my recruiting life, 5-10 years after I had recruited somebody, the employees that were still with the company were usually the ones that were the most excited about the company when we were recruiting them. Not necessarily the job, not necessarily the work, but the company, what the company stood for, the values of the company. That picture you see there, it's part of my team. We actually have one employee who's not pictured there. And I have another employee starting on Monday on our construction crew. And we have two interns as well. Every single one of these women has taken a pay cut and a benefits cut to come to work for Hope Renovations. And they did it gladly. It wasn't me like begging them to come to Hope Renovations. Three of our employees found out about us through word of mouth, came to me and said, I want to come do what y'all are doing. I want to come be a part of this. This is important to me. This is something I've always been interested in. Sandy, who is pictured there with short hair and glasses, she is our instructor. She manages all of our hard skills instruction. She was a GC for 13 years. I was at a meeting of the HBA, the Home Builders Association, and she came up to me and she said, I heard about what you're doing. Who do you have teaching your classes? I want to do it. So, she left that life behind for this. Kat over there on the far left, Kat is our construction supervisor. She was a school social worker. You can't get much different than a construction worker than a school social worker. And she found out about what Hope Renovations was all about. She had worked summers doing construction work her whole life. And she said, this sounds like the best thing I've ever heard of. And, the woman who's coming to work for us on Monday, same thing. She's taking a pay cut. She's taking a benefits cut. I am so honored to have these women on the team, and to have that kind of passion for what we're doing. And it is honestly the thing that is making this work. It is the thing that I know that if I dropped off the face of the earth, every single one of these women would keep Hope Renovations going and would grow it. They're the reason behind our success, and our interns as well. So I think that's a big part of it. I want to talk about partners. I think if you're familiar with nonprofits at all, it's important in nonprofits to have financial supporters, right? And all of these folks listed here are financial supporters for us. They're funders, they're sponsors. We have a lot more than this. These are kind of some of the more recognizable ones. We have great partnerships. I will tell you that I didn't really go after any of these. They found out about what we were doing and came to me. These conversations were very organic. It wasn't me selling this. And the reason for that is that it was a long, slow buildup. Like I said, I worked on Hope Renovations for about 3 years before we launched. And in that time, I spent a lot of time just figuring out who were the right partners. Who is in this, who wants women to be in the trades, who is most excited about what we're doing. And that list right there is a who's who of who that is. And I recognize that. And those are the relationships I spent time building. We've got partners that are not trades related. Carroll Woods is a retirement community, so they're more interested sort of in our aging in place side of things. We have a partner that is a law firm, but they just had such excitement and such energy about what we're doing. And when I say that shared energy equals max momentum, even in hard times, like a pandemic, if our energy level dips, we still have all these partners who are 100% invested, and their energy is what kind of pulls the whole thing up. So, having the right partners in place is absolutely critical, and spending some time figuring out who that is, who you want on your side, and not wasting time with the partners or the potential partners that may not be the right fit for what you're doing. So obviously, I think one of the reasons that we've kind of appreciated some exposure over the last 6 months is we've used our platform to advocate for women in the trades. So as an example, you see these pictures here. We applied for a grant and received a grant to do some COVID-19 training for the construction industry. And the grant opportunity was just, we're looking for, providers who can create some kind of COVID-19 training, because the construction industry is just like the worst when it comes to wearing masks and that sort of thing. So, we just want to get this message out there. Who can help us? We applied for this grant. But my ulterior motive was not just to help people understand the basics of COVID-19 safety, but to use it as a way to get that message of getting more women in the trades out there. So when I proposed this to the funders, I said, it's going to show only women. The only women in this video that we're going to produce, the only people in this video that we're producing are going to be women. They're going to be wearing hard hats. They're going to be using tools. We want to use this as an opportunity to amplify the idea that women are doing this, that women can do this, that women are a part of this industry. So I think, for that, that was an opportunity for me to use our platform to be able to get more of the message out there. And I think if we're really doing this, for women by women, we have to use every opportunity, every chance we have, whether it's social media, whether it's opportunities like this, whether it's an interview that we give with a local news station, plugging this message and getting this message out there. The flame can't spread if you don't give it air. You got to get it out there so it'll spread and get as many people hearing it as possible. And it's not just women that need to hear it. It's the fourth thing, which is men. One of the biggest keys to our success is the men in this industry that have become our partners, or that are just even interested in becoming our partners. So this is a man's world, right? I mean, there's no bones about it, right? This is a man's world. You'll hear me say often, and I say a lot, I want this to be a woman's world. In 20 years, I want the trades to be a woman's world. When I say that, I'm not saying that I want women to displace men and just take over things completely. I mean, maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but that's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I want women and men to be equal in this industry. I want this to be a place where women think of as a great career opportunity. I want women to think of the trades as, this is an industry where I'm welcome, where my talents, are going to be used, where I have a career path, just like my male counterparts. Certain men believe that already, and certain men don't. And that's the challenge, right? Is finding the ones that are on board with that and educating the ones that aren't. So, there's a lot of men who from the very start heard about what we were doing. They own businesses. Almost all of our builder partners, with the exception of a couple, are male-owned businesses. They found out what they were doing. They have a personal desire to get more women into their companies. They want to see more women in the trades. They have daughters, that they want this to be an example for. So they were behind us from the start, all over it. And there's some pictures of some of those guys that we work with in our program. Big supporters. Some men that I have talked to have kind of they were very skeptical, I guess, at first, but they've definitely come around. And every week we have another typically male-owned business reach out to us and say, hey, I heard about what you're doing. I think it's awesome. How do I get involved? How do I get women from your organization to consider my organization as a place to land? Because I think men, obviously men, women, everybody is realizing women have been missing from this industry for so long. And now we have this critical workforce need. And it's like there's a whole population, there's a whole gender that's not here duh, like we need to spend some time making sure that these women can come into the industry. But it's not going to be easy. And I don't want anyone to think that, any kind of program like this, you're going to go out there and every, guy out there that is part of the old boys club is going to want you here, but I think that it's our role to educate. So the comparison I would make is, how many of you think that like honeybees are important? Like you think that bees are important, that they have value, right? Yes. So I see some hands. They give something to our environment. It's important that we protect them, etc. Now, how many of you like wasps? I'm not seeing any. Yeah. So not a lot of wasp lovers out there, right? And that's understandable. They're aggressive. They sting. They show up at family picnics in the summertime always. I can understand that. But what if I told you that wasps are responsible for getting rid of 30 million pounds of pests every summer in the US? 30 million pounds of pests, just wasps. One of their the greatest things they do for us is they get rid of other pests. And then the other thing is, you might be surprised to find out that their capability for pollination is almost exactly the same as bees. Wasps pollinate almost as much as bees do. So you probably don't like wasps any better. You probably are still a little bit, unsure about your feelings on wasps. But maybe now when you go out and you see a wasp, you're going to give it a chance. You're going to think about what it actually brings to the table. And maybe because I've just educated you on some of the wonderful things about wasps, I happen to love them, you'll actually consider them as being a part of a larger ecosystem and being a really important part of it. And that's what we have to do in this industry. We have to take it on ourselves to educate men, to get out there and to let them know, hey, women can do the same things you can. Women have the same capabilities. Women want to do the same kind of work. Women like heavy machinery too. If we can get out there, if we can educate our male counterparts that maybe don't see us as equals, it's not going to be an overnight thing, but if they start to give women a chance, that is how we get the ball rolling on creating something that in 5, 10, 20 years, you'll be driving down the road and you'll see women on a job site and it will not be unusual at all. So men are our partners. Men are a big part of what we're doing. The last thing I wanted to talk about, because I personally think this is really interesting, and I'm just going to spend a minute on it. We hear this narrative all the time about, so science bears out that women are better at certain things, right? We're more detail oriented. We're more organized. We're better at task completion. We follow directions better. Like the science says, women are better at those things. And those are all important qualities in a trade's job. But we also hear this narrative all the time about the reasons that women are not as successful in jobs like this, right? Like we're more emotional, or, we're more family oriented. So we always have to put family first, or, we're not as confident. Harvard Business Review did some research on this a few years ago. And what they found was that neither science nor experience actually bears any of that out. When compared with male counterparts, the confidence levels, the family orientation, the emotions, the empathy, they were all the same between men and women. What wasn't the same is how women are treated because of that narrative that has become so ingrained in our culture. So for instance, if a woman has a baby, she's seen as a mother, right? And she is encouraged to take leave, to take a step back, to get out of the hard job and do the easier job. And as a result, what happens? She doesn't have that strong career path that maybe she might have had if she hadn't been treated that way. If a man has a child, That's not the case at all. He's not treated in that way. So there are these gender roles that exist, not just in this industry, but in all industries, that we have to be aware of and we have to fight against. I hear from men sometimes in this industry, yeah, I'm interested in having women on the job site, but women are different. They're more emotional. I don't know how that's going to interact. That's not it. The culture is what is holding us back. The culture and the narrative and the belief that all of those things are true are actually what's holding us back. So having that knowledge and having that understanding and being able to educate again the males in this industry and everyone in this industry. It's not just men, it's women too who live this culture and do this. It's going to give us opportunities where we didn't have before, as long as we can just have an awareness of the fact that we are equal. Science says we're equal. We just have to prove it. We have to get out there and we have to educate ourselves and we have to be doing the thing. And that's what we're doing with Hope Renovations. We're doing the thing. And, I would encourage anybody that has any questions about creating something like Hope Renovations, I'm happy to talk about it anytime. I love talking about what we're doing. And if you have any questions right now, I would love to hear them.
Nora, thank you so much for your time today. This presentation was absolutely amazing. Um, I can stay on, and Nora, if you can stay on a few minutes, we can do that. I want to officially end the time for those who do have a commitment after 1 o'clock. And then we can stay on for those of you who may have some other questions if you want to engage with Nora more. But I just want to say again, thank you so much for first the sacrifice that you've made to launch this organization. I know when we first met, it was very eerily similar, some of the revelations we were having along the way and how we came to our theories of impact for the organization. And I'll say that you'll be seeing more between Hope Renovations and She Built This City down the road as we're working on some things. But we're really excited about what that could mean for North Carolina and beyond. So thank you for your time today. Thank you all for joining us in this conversation. It's happening. And so I think we often think about the future of the trades. The future is now. And we have pioneers leading the way for this. It's not easy. There's lots of, what do they say? You wear your right shoes because glass ceilings are being broke. There's glass on the floor everywhere we go. I would say that's doubly in the construction space. Wear your hard-toed shoes and masks and earplugs. All your PPE because of all the things that we are tearing down to change this industry. And so thank you all for joining us. We're going to continue this conversation. Next week, we have two amazing presenters. We have China Green from Summit Corporation talking about women-owned businesses in construction. And then on Thursday, we just got confirmation, Jorge de la Jara is going to be moderating a panel on technology in the trades and how we use technology for trades training. Jorge is the lead of the Generation T department at Lowe's. And so we have virtual reality from Industry Lift. We have simulators from Hoop-I Grading and online training from teachconstruction.org. And so that's an exciting panel next week. So you won't want to miss it. Please register. This will be available online, both our website and social media. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to She Built This City. You can also reach out to Hope Renovations for additional conversations. So thank you all for your time. We look forward to engaging more. I'm going to officially end for the recording, but we'll stay on if there are any additional questions. Thank you so much.